We're up 40-50% on SPY and QQQ calls. I got into May and June calls down here on the SPY at 582, and then on the QQQ down below 511. QQQ's at 530 right now. These are up huge. And I wanted something nice, safe. I was expecting more weakness. I would have loved more weakness. But at that moment, when you saw the strength, when you saw all of the different factors to go long, you had to take some longs. So I hope that video that I shared a few days ago helped you guys want to lean long. And today, we finally broke above the fib levels, the 50 to 1.618% fibs. We broke above them. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at what the next steps are for the market, how much more room there is to go, what the overall sentiment is, and we're going to take it piece by piece, the large tech stocks, the SP500, the NASDAQ, the Russell, and then the bonds and the VIX. All right, so without further ado, let's get started with the video. So if you guys remember in yesterday's video, at this close here, I was basically showing how there was more room to go to the upside. We still had to retest the trend line, and there was also room to go to 6,100. That basically happened in a day. And the other thing I was basically saying was bulls needed a strong move upwards very, very quickly. This was perfect. This was a perfect scenario for bulls. This essentially happened phenomenal. You could see that this rising wedge, we are back, and we technically pretty much reclaimed it. If we can close above 6,100 on the ES, this is going to be absolutely insane. But this was right. This is just what the doctor ordered. Honestly, this was perfect. We needed this to occur. And when you look at the QQQ, we reclaimed this trend line, right? This uptrend line, grinded upwards. So we closed above the 618% fib on the QQQ as well as on the SPY. I was saying how this 50% to 618% fib level right here, this zone was going to be very, very important, and we needed a strong, quick rip of upwards. It doesn't get much better than this. Honestly, it's like it's a holiday miracle, honestly, because low volume, a perfect opportunity. This is Santa Claus rally. We basically closed on the highs for the day, and it was just spectacular. We gapped upwards, and we just rallied upwards all day. Out in the morning, after we held 596. After we held 596 down here. When we held 596 in the morning, I was like, this is bullish. There's the way that we were holding 596 was so spectacular this morning. I was leaning bullish. I did not take any shorts. I didn't take any new long positions either. We were just watching, and it was just an amazing. It was amazing, honestly. The market was very, very bullish. I didn't tell anyone to lean bearish at all today. You had to be bullish. I gave the level to be bullish above, and it worked out really beautifully. The SPY was holding support. The Russell was holding support. The NASDAQ was holding support. Everything, clearly just worked out beautifully. We jumped up from 596 to 601 today. We jumped from, what is this? A 3-day move from, ridiculous, 581 to 601. That's a $20 move in the S&P in 3 days after everyone was super bearish. And what did we do? What do we always do? What do we always do when there's extreme on either side? When there's an extreme buying pressure or extreme selling pressure, what do? We play the opposite. And it's, once again, guys, it is so easy to play the reversal in an uptrend when there's weakness. It's one of the simplest things you could do. So it worked out, and we could say that this was a very, very spectacular, successful trade. And it doesn't get much better than this, honestly. So how much more room is there to go, though? How much further can the market churn upwards? Are we going to get a stagnation, pull back to 598, hold that level of support, and then make another leg upwards? What's going to happen? All right. All of this has a lot to do with large tech stocks. So we have to see how much more room there is for the large tech stocks. All right. Number one, Apple is making new highs. It is just continuing to rally. Okay. Tesla bounced very, very nicely and had a very, very big day. It's up almost 8%. So Tesla had a really big rip to the upside. This looks really bullish. Tesla looks very bullish. Okay. Meta held that level of support yesterday, and it continued on upwards today. Okay. Google is also very bullish. So basically, so far what we've seen, right? Let's just go back to Meta, right? So far what we've seen is that these stocks, all of them collectively still have a little bit more room to go before they get really, really before there's a solid point where things want to get a pullback. Meta still has more room to go. It would get some sort of a pullback closer to 617. We're at 607 right now. Google, still very strong. It closed above major levels of resistance. We could get a pullback down to 195 on Google, but overall, Google should rally up. I mean, as long as it holds above 196 during this week, we could see above 200 very soon. Tesla, same concept. Tesla ripped above. If Tesla can hold above 440, which seems very likely, 445-ish area, even if it gets a pullback down, if it can stagnate above 445, this is very, very bullish on Tesla as well. Amazon also looks very bullish. Amazon held the level of support. It started to close above 228. If it can hold above 226, this is going to be a solid move to the upside, similar to what we just saw on Google. So Amazon looks good. Meta looks good. Tesla looks good. Google looks good. Microsoft, not as good, but it's not completely bearish. If Microsoft was starting to get a sell-off somehow, that would be kind of weird. But Microsoft is flat, essentially, for the day. It's up about 1%, but it didn't have a huge green day like these other stocks did. Microsoft is doing its thing. Apple is also clearly very bullish. Let's take a look at Netflix. Netflix, like I said, it was showing consolidation. We were holding support, and now it looks like it's about to make another high. So Netflix clearly very, very strong as well. The interesting thing is that also chips started to do very well. So AMD, once it broke above the downtrend level, like I was saying, you cannot go short on these stocks into weakness. It makes way more sense to go long. What ended up happening? We ended up bouncing. We got one close above this downtrend, and then we gapped up again. So 3 days of just AMD ripping to the upside. NVIDIA did not have as monumental as a day that it did yesterday. Same concept here, though. NVIDIA, if it can close above 140, if AMD can close above 128, we could see into the 130s again on AMD, and then we could see into the 140s on NVIDIA. Overall, right? So what we're seeing so far, let's just think about it. What we're seeing so far is that these large tech stocks still have a little bit more room to go before they hit major resistance, or they're already trading above major resistance. Okay? So what does that remind you of? It reminds me of the ES. The ES was almost, this sort of setup right here, where we're making a bear flag, where we're coming to a level of resistance with a little bit more room to go to the upside before we hit. It's very similar among all of these large tech stocks. The ES yesterday had a bit more room to go before it touched resistance, and you could see how it responded here. The NASDAQ and tech stocks, the large tech stocks, also are sort of where the ES was yesterday. And if the ES can continue here, and if it can really reclaim this trend line, which so far it did, and if it can close above 6,100, so far it looks like it's about to, then the large tech stocks are going to continue rallying as well, unless we get some sort of pullback down to levels of support. Overall, this looks really, really bullish. This is kind of crazy. Obviously, you would want some sort of a pullback to get some sort of long opportunities, because this, if we don't get a pullback, then every bull that did not go long down here is going to be kicking themselves. I don't know, to be honest. It would just be very, very unfortunate if we don't get a pullback, because if it just continues rallying like this is extremely strong. And it could end up happening. We don't need to necessarily, the only thing I could think of is if AMD and NVIDIA start to pull back a bit to support. Where's AMD support? 125, 126. We're at 126, essentially 124, 125, right? If AMD could hold that, that'd be great. NVIDIA's level of support is going to be back here at 180, 138.50, 137.50. If it can hold these prior lows, and if it can hold just the trend upwards, right, then there's more room to go. But so here's the thing where it gets a little bit frightening. If NVIDIA closes back below 135, that would be a problem. If AMD closes below 123, that could be a problem. But I mean, how can you be bearish when Apple continues to make new highs, when Tesla is up almost 10% in a day? Meta, Google, Microsoft, it's tough, man. It's tough. It's really tough to just randomly be bearish very aggressively. It could happen, right? We still need to close above the set. Look, there's still hope for bears right now. The 786% fib is a major. Look, today was a face ripper rally. If anyone was short over here, right, you needed to have a stop loss. If we gapped up and we ended up breaking above 596, and we were essentially in this zone, right? So look, if you were short, once we broke above the 618% fib, you had to take the loss. You had to take the loss, and you have to look for a better opportunity. The better short would be closer to 786, would be closer to the 786% fib. I didn't take any profit over here. I didn't take any profit today because the move was low volume, Santa Claus rally. I didn't want to get short, and I was just, I got into very, very longer term calls. I want to wait for at least 610, 615. We didn't even get much of a pullback today, which is insane to me, but that is kind of worrisome. That is actually kind of worrisome. The fact that we didn't get a pullback today, when you think about it, even when you were day trading, even if you were looking at the 1 minute time frame, you were looking at, intraday chart, after you get some sort of a rip into a level of resistance, generally you get some sort of a pullback. That didn't happen today. So that is very, very similar to sort of the price action that we saw heading into new all-time highs back at the end of November. It was very, very peculiar, right? We ended up ripping into new all-time highs, but then these three candles, if you guys remember, right? We made new highs, similar concept. We were holding resistance here. We made new highs. These two candles never got a solid pullback to retest this candle a bit. So we closed at 603, right? We never got a pullback into, let me just clean this up. We never got a pullback. And then we ripped up even higher. So that's sort of the issue. That's sort of the same concept of what I'm looking at right now. It doesn't. And then what ended up happening? The move was not sustainable. It's the same concept. It's sort of the same concept. The easiest thing is to continue leaning long into levels of support. And once again, as you get to, so look, I'm just going to answer the questions. I'm just going to answer a lot of questions right now. Do I want to start going long if we get closer to 603? No. Do I want to start going long if we get closer to highs? No. Where would I rather go long? If we get pullbacks back down to levels of resistance, back down to levels of support. That's really it. So maybe it's just me being more safe, because we clearly see there's a lot of good opportunities. There's still long opportunities on these large tech stocks. These large tech stocks, a lot of them are still down here, right? Where the S&P gapped upwards already, a lot of the large tech stocks still have room to go to catch up. So there are good long opportunities in the large tech stocks, no doubt. On the S&P, though, do I want to add to longs? Definitely not. Over here and into all-time highs? Absolutely not. Why would I? Because we already went long down here. So, so even as a new bull, where would you want to put your money? Into the large tech stocks, into the setups that have more room to really, really rip to the upside, not into something that already ripped. Does that make sense? So that's what we have to think about in terms of either being a new bull, or are you going to be a new bull? Are you going to be a early bear? Don't want to really be an early bear during a period of strength. That's the concept here. So that's the concept. That's really it, because look, if we end up closing on the ES above 6100, technically this is resistance. I wouldn't be surprised to see us come back down to 6050 on the ES. I would not be surprised to come back down to the JP Morgan collar level at 6050. We could come back down to 6050. We could stagnate a bit. That is very, very possible. And this would end up being a solid sort of short opportunity here. And we would come back, retest 6050. It would work out pretty perfectly. I would not be surprised if that ends up happening. And that would actually be pretty healthy for the overall market as well, in my opinion. Is that going to happen? I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. There's a lot more room to go in these large tech stocks. But it makes the most sense if we pin to that 60-50 level for the end of the week. Thursday, Friday, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe just be very, very... personally, I would be very... I doubt anyone took major longs overnight today. I would be very careful about swinging aggressively long either Thursday after hours or Friday. I would be careful, because should get some sort of pullback. I don't know. I'm already positioned long. I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice, but it just makes the most sense if we get a pullback to 650. We're at levels of resistance on the ES. Yes, the NASDAQ, these large tech stocks do have room to go. Yes, the large tech stocks have room to catch up. That's the case. I get it. We're at resistance here. We're at resistance on Apple is at new all-time highs. If Apple gets a pullback, if NVIDIA and AMD also get a pullback, Tesla is up almost 10% intraday. If Tesla gets a 2, 3, 4% pullback as well, that's not going to be bullish for the overall market, in my opinion. And then, last but not least, junk TLT also continued making new highs. So it continued making new highs. When this made new highs and gapped up over here on this December 19th candle, this marked a lot of selling in the overall market. What ended up happening the next few days after this? We made highs. So we made highs on the junk TLT while also making highs on the ES and the overall market. That is generally an issue. That's generally a problem. When it's going to occur, when that problem is going to permeate, is yet to be seen. But so far, I'm just very, very happy, and we're fortunate that we didn't end up going short. We're fortunate we didn't end up going short on the ES in that level. We let the longs ride. The VIX is also coming back down to a major level of support. So the VIX and the yields in the bonds are starting to get a little bit very, very overcooked and weak here. So back to this major level of support on the VIX at 14. If we even come back down to below 14 to this 13 to 14 level, it should bounce because, you know, a strong VIX usually leads to a weak market, and we got a VIX crush. Generally, we should get a bit of a pullback. And just how much did we drop in percentage? Dropped almost 50% in 4 days. I don't know. This generally, when something like this happens, to be newly long is very difficult. And if it's difficult to be newly long at levels of resistance, it's probably a good sign not to overthink, not to chase, and let the market come to you. And what I mean by that, let the market get a bit of a pullback and see what ends up happening there. Because once again, like I said, if you do end up longing here, which we might, anything can happen. Day over day, things can change. But if the general rule of thumb is, do I want to go long into resistance? No. Will I? Maybe. Because if we can keep a tight stop loss, we can ride the up move with a very high risk reward. And if we can catch these rips to the upside, right, at levels of resistance, if we start to stagnate over here at highs and it pulls back, nice tight stop loss, we can ride to the upside with tight stop losses. If we can get these setups, that'd be great. But, you know, unless you're monitoring the trade, it's generally not safe to do. That's the problem. But I love it. Honestly, I love it. Market is giving us a present, and thankfully it's working really well. It's working really well, thankfully. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys bright and early Thursday. Have an amazing time with your families, with your friends. Get a lot of rest. I hope you guys were good and you don't have coal and all that good stuff. All right, love you guys. See you guys Thursday. Take care.